According to The Beat, no Hockenson for Sunday's game against the Lions. So without that, how do the Vikings attack? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day, every single day. I appreciate my hashtag everydayers so very much. And if you are new here, I also love you. Hello, welcome. You can find the show wherever you find your favorite podcast. Just search out Locked On Vikings wherever you listen to shows, whether it's any podcast listening app or even YouTube or Amazon Fire and Roku if you download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We have so much to do today. We've got this over-under. We've got your bold predictions. Football is back. The bye week is over. It is time to get fully back into the swing of things and talk a little bit about the Detroit Lions. But before we get into all of that fun prediction style stuff, so TJ Hockenson spoke to reporters on Thursday and was very cagey about his injury status, of course, coming off that nasty ACL, MCL injury from last year. Been on IR, currently in his 21-day window to return. The way the math works out, if he is not back for this game or Thursday's game against the Rams, he must be back before that Colts game. His 21-day window will have expired. If he is not back by then, he reverts back to season-ending IR, and then that's it. It's over. That's a pretty rare thing to happen unless there's like a setback or some other thing happens. So he's working on it. This is the first game that he would actually be able to be back. I think technically his window opened like the day they played in London, but obviously that wasn't going to be the case. And I think it felt to me like they were always kind of targeting the bye, the last couple of weeks, the way that they were talking about him. It kind of felt like that the game after the bye was going to be the target. And when asked, hey, are you going to play? What's your deal? What's your status? What's your timeline? He said, we're taking it day by day. We're going to do this. We're going to, hey, we're all just kind of trying to take it, to be responsible. And he didn't say anything. He was cagey about it. He said nothing, which you have to, right? As a player, if you are even just 99% sure that you're going to play, you still kind of have to give that answer. So it's very easily ignorable information, whatever he said in that presser. However, Kevin Seifert of ESPN, Ben Gessling of the Star Tribune, both seem to think that the Rams game is a more likely target, which is kind of funny because that's a short week. So what weirdly specific timing? And then if not that, the Colts game. The return of TJ Hockenson is nigh, but it might not be this Sunday. Gessling even said on Twitter that he expects not that TJ, when asked, so is TJ Hockenson going to play? And he said, I would expect not. So without Hockenson, how does this game plan and attack look? I did an entire Patreon post on the game plan for the Lions defense and a little bit about their offense as well on patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL. So please go check that out. A lot of it was about some of the Hockenson stuff that I've been talking about yesterday and the day before. Some of it was about their coverage structures and especially how they play man coverage. And then a little bit about Jared Goff and in particular his relationship to turnaround play passes, true play action. He on rollouts, he does fine, but on true play passes, that was a big problem in Los Angeles between him and Sean McVay, where once he turned around after the run fake, he couldn't process the field quickly enough for McVay. And that actually caused a problem. It was an interesting thing that they talked about on Jordan Rodriguez, the Play Callers series. But there was actually another interesting point that Dan Orlovsky made on NFL Live about that and about how against a defense like Flores's that obfuscates the look so much and does so much stuff to cloud those first few moments that turning around can sort of simplify it, where you just miss all that. You can disguise all you want. I'm going to turn around and then fake a handoff. And by the time I've gotten to the top of my drop and I'm back on there, now the coverage has to have declared. You can't keep your disguises that long at a certain point, right? If you're still pretending to be in single high by the time the quarterback gets to the top of his drop. You just are in single high. So that can kind of simplify it, and that'll be an interesting thing to watch for the Lions. Will they, turn Jared Goff's back to the defense at any point? But the initial question I asked was on the other side of the ball. What will the Vikings offensive attack look like? So the Lions look to be pretty likely to be without Carlton Davis, who is very important to that secondary. Terrion Arnold has been a rookie. He's been a little grabby. That's very classic rookie stuff, but he's been, I would say, respectable for a rookie. Rookie corners struggle a lot in their first year, and we've definitely seen successful rookie corners that struggled more than Arnold is. But he's kind of going through those growing pains, and Carlton Davis has been kind of CB1 for them. He's out. So what do we do now? And I wouldn't be super surprised to see the Lions go full on zone it off and just like live in quarters and say, you're just never going to get deep on me. We're just going to go cover 4 all day long. And the Vikings have their quarters beaters. And if they see that that's where the Lions are going, they'll have a game plan for that. But with the gravity of Justin Jefferson, those quarters beaters are going to have to be drawn up to Jordan Addison. And Addison, production-wise, like as a fantasy asset from like a pure like box score perspective, is a boomer buster. He is a guy that's going to get 4 targets, but they're all explosive, but it's only 4 targets. And it's like very weird to parse that value out fantasy-wise. But this is the kind of game where that works out really well because those targets are all on quarters beaters. Or cover 3 beaters. But like, are they going to have the courage to man up Justin Jefferson if they don't have anybody they feel can do that without getting a million penalties, just like the Jets did, and basically giving the Vikings offense a whole bunch of free first downs? That's not a winning strategy. And the Lions, last time the Lions lost to the Vikings, it was kind of because of that. So are they going to just zone this off? Are they going to have people poaching Justin Jefferson from the other side? Whole bunch of attention paid to him. And then you have Addison, Naylor probably getting a lot of one-on-ones. If those guys can win their one-on-ones, then the Vikings should be able to find some separation. And then it's just on Sam Darnold to get through his reads and on the O-line to block it up against the line without Aiden Hutchinson. The Vikings have passed all of those tests consistently this season. Every question I just asked, the answer has been yes. That's something they're going to have to do again, right? They got to keep doing it, got to stay consistent. But the evidence has shown that they're going to be able to do that, and they're going to be able to move the ball. And on the other side, I mean, obviously, the Lions' run game is as fantastic as ever. Ben Johnson gets all of his flowers. That is a really good offense versus a really good defense. What happens there? Will the Lions be able to say use quick snaps or use tempo ideas? And use their own strange looks and aggressive decisions to sort of counter the Vikings' strange decisions. Brian Flores had a great quote when he went to the podium where he said, I like to fight fire with fire when you see an aggressive offense, an aggressive coach like Dan Campbell. And I love that quote because it means that everybody's going to be taking risks. And if the Vikings get the short end of those sticks, that means that you could see some, really crazy long busted plays, explosives. This could be a game with a lot of production. As, good as Brian Flores' defense has played, there's a lot of risk to it. And so eventually you're going to have one of those like that. Maybe it's this one. And the betting market seems to really back that up. So next we're going to look at that through the eyes of FanDuel and the betting lines. That's this over-under, plus your bold predictions, all that coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Arena Club. Arena Club is for card collectors, like a Justin Jefferson rookie card, that kind of thing. And if you don't want to drop like a ton of money on those really high value collectibles, Arena Club has their slab packs for you to take your chances at pulling one at a much lower cost. And there are a lot of companies that will have like a booster pack idea for trading cards like these. But the thing about Arena Club is their commitment to transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. And the Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent, with a full grade rationale provided and explanation of how your card was scored. So no questions, nothing kept behind the curtain. You know exactly what you're working with. So right now, you can get 10% off of your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl and using code LOCKEDONNFL. It's arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl, code LOCKEDONNFL for 10% off of your first purchase. Today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks, the best place to play daily fantasy football. PrizePicks has been my favorite way to have a little bit of fun, a little something extra to watch for during games I otherwise don't care about at all, like, I don't know, Broncos Saints, for example, or any of the weird primetime slate sucks. I will be absolutely utilizing some PrizePicks just to have something to watch. But I've had a ton of success this year on PrizePicks. You just pick 2 to 6 of your favorite players. You can flex them so that if you don't get every single one right, you still get a little bit of something back. But you can win up to 100 times your money if you nail it all. And it's just you versus the house, just you versus the PrizePicks projection. So you're not coming up with an entire lineup and trying to enter a pool with 100,000 people. That is what I love about PrizePicks. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONNFL at the PrizePicks app, code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. Again, when you're done here, go check out patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL. Go check out my Lions scouting episode, or you can go check out a couple episodes about the Jets game. They went up a little bit later in the week. You might have missed them, so go check that out. It's less than $4 a month to subscribe if you want to see them right away, or you can wait until they are made available to the public later on. Now, it is time to take a look at the FanDuel betting lines and see just what it is the public thinks is going to happen in this game. It's time for this over-under. This is the largest over-under we've had on any Vikings game so far. 50.5. Maybe it was higher for week one, but I don't think it was. I don't think week one lines get that high. So 50.5 is the over-under for this game. The Vikings favored by 1.5. As I look at this line has been all over the place all week. This is the other very distinct thing at FanDuel. As I have checked back, I've seen -2. I've seen -2.5. Before week 6, it was the Lions favored before Hockenson got hurt. So this has been all over the place. So what I am gathering is that I don't know if anybody knows quite what to make of the Lions without Hockenson yet, which is super, super fair. So there's a lot of uncertainty around that. But what that uncertainty has manifested into is pessimism about the defenses, about the Lions defense for obvious reasons. And then I think there's also just optimism around their offense. And all of these lines have just grown super inflated. So with the Vikings favored by 1.5, and the over-under at 50.5, that implies like a 26-24 kind of win, 27-24, that kind of thing. So a very close game. And depending on where you got the spread, a very close game, but a high scoring game, 27-24. That's going to have a good amount of fireworks. And if you look at the anytime touchdown scorers, there are 4 of them in this game that are minus odds. That is to say, you will win less than twice your money if you win that. Not much less, but it means that that FanDuel thinks that these guys are really, really likely, better than 50-50 to score a touchdown, which is pretty crazy to have 4 guys there: Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler, David Montgomery, and Justin Jefferson. And isn't that interesting? With Aaron Jones, we're not quite sure if he's going to play. He was a DNP on Wednesday. He was a limited participant on Thursday with a hip/hamstring thing, depending. I mean, the hamstring kind of comes up to your hip, so it like depends on where you classify it, but there's been some confusion over what you call it. It's not a hamstring strain like what Justin Jefferson had. I think it's some kind of, they would maybe call it a contusion, is what I would guess is that kind of thing. But whatever it is, he's been limited on Thursday. We'll see what the Friday injury report is. You know that probably. I don't yet. Welcome to the time travel world of podcasting. But isn't it fascinating that both Jones and Chandler are negative odds to get a touchdown? That means that the sportsbook thinks, the FanDuel sportsbook thinks that both of those players are very likely to get in. And it just kind of depends on which one gets all the carries. You're really unlikely to get both of them in for obvious reasons, but whoever it is, they like that. They like Jefferson. Of course, they like David Montgomery, who's I think he's at 8 games in a row with a touchdown now. If you're interested in something spicy, FanDuel has a special parlay, at least as of this recording, that is Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, and Justin Jefferson, all 4 of them getting in the end zone at some point at plus 1330, if you want to go to those. Personally, those aren't my favorite, those like specialty parlays, but if you want to do something spicy, that's an interesting one. I encourage you to come up with something with a little more thought and build your own, though. Some other interesting lines, Gibbs and Monty, both of their rushing totals, 51.5, over under 51.5, both of them exactly the same, kind of telling you that the sportsbook and therefore the betting public, which I say this every time, the betting public influences these lines a lot. The way that these things work, as it was told to me by an odds maker in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, that's on an episode of this show, was that they kind of they have their odds makers that like do their best and come up with the initial line. And then over the next like hour or two, whatever the public does influences that line a lot. So if you get the line right when it comes out, you can find some really wonky things. That's kind of what the Sharks do. But after a little while, it's the wisdom of crowds. So this is what America thinks is going to happen. This is not what FanDuel thinks is going to happen. This is what America thinks is going to happen. And America can't make sense of the Lions backfield. They don't know who's going to get more. But Gibbs has a higher receiving total. So they, I guess, are anticipating more production from Jahmyr Gibbs in this one than David Montgomery, even though David Montgomery is a pretty clear running back one, the way that he's been used. I think that's interesting. Another interesting little quirk I found is that the Lions are underdogs in quarters 1, 2, and 3, but favorites in quarter 4. If you want to do the like by quarter spreads, all of these are 1.5 points, which is interesting because the whole game is 1.5 points, right? So if you add up all those quarters, it would be Vikings by 3. But so there's some incongruence there, and when you find that incongruence, usually that means that there's an edge somewhere. But you have to be able to figure out where that is, and that's obviously how they get you. But the quarter 4 thing is really interesting. I think that's Vikings have lost every fourth quarter for a little bit now, that they've let these like 2 comebacks happen. They've gone up by 3 scores and then let them come back now twice in a row. And so that's a little bit of, the Vikings are bad at the end of games. And if the Vikings do spring out to an early lead, we'll all be watching for that, right? But if it is close down the stretch, then I think because that's a different situation, it's totally different football. I don't know if that necessarily is going to track, but hey, that's what the sportsbook has. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison reception overs, by the way, insanely short odds. So they are 6.5 receptions and 4.5 receptions, respectively, which are perfectly fine numbers. Sure, do what you will with those. But they're minus 146 and minus 156. That means that the public is hammering those. They are expecting Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to go off in this one. That's what that means. They're expecting a lot of usage for those guys. So all of this is telling you a ton of offense. The Vikings look better. There's a lot more for the Vikings scoring wise. There's a lot more really favored touchdown scorers on the Vikings. There's a lot more in terms of, Justin Jefferson has the highest receiving total. He basically always does. There's a lot of optimism for the Vikings being able to score. There's optimism for the Lions being able to score as well. And then maybe, backdoor cover or something like that if in the fourth quarter. That's kind of that sort of game that we're seeing. But we don't need to speculate about all this because we have Zostradamus, my rabbit, who has not missed a pick yet, and they picked again. As always, I will show that video on YouTube. If you're just an audio listener, I'll narrate for you best I can. So this one, I decided to have them, to give them a little banana treat instead of the usual, which is lettuce. But ZD went right for it, essentially, as soon as he woke up. This was kind of their nap time, so they were sleepy. But as soon as he woke up, he went right for it. And what is interesting about what ZD did is that he immediately gobbled up both of the Lions' bananas, taking away Zoe's ability to pick the Lions at all. This is fair game. This is absolutely a strategic thing that can happen. ZD woke up first. He can do that. But ZD at 1-4, who has for 4 weeks in a row now refused to pick the Vikings, is now forcing Zoe to pick the Vikings. I don't know if that's the best strategy based on the final the last couple of weeks, but it's the one that he has decided to employ. But now Zostradamus, who is at a cool 4-0. It's ZD's 1-3, so cool 4-0. I missed a week because I was out of town. But Zoe, who has not missed one yet, picks the Vikings. By the way, when I did this, it was -2.5. So Vikings -2.5 is the official pick for Zoe, plus Lions +2.5 is the official pick for ZD. We'll see how it all plays out. We got your bold predictions coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel, where you saw all of those lines we just spent so much time talking about, and you can start the season off with a big old bang on FanDuel if you have not started already. You can go to FanDuel.com, sign up, and get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. In addition to all the lines we just talked about, you can also live bet in the middle of a game. If you get a hunch, the Vikings are up 17 and you're going, they're going to blow this lead. You can take probably a really, really large spread for the Lions, or whatever you feel is going to happen. You can go ahead and lay down $5 on that, whatever it is, whether it's a live bet, whether it's a big, season-long futures bet, like for the Vikings to win the division or something like that, or any of the single game props that we talked about in the last segment. You can go to FanDuel.com and place $5 on it. And whether that bet wins or loses, you get $200 back in bonus bets. Guaranteed, no matter what happens. $5 for 200. Where are you going to get odds like that? That's at FanDuel.com. Make every moment more. It's time to get bold. Oh, we're going to get bold together. You and me, we're going to get bold. It's time to get bold. It's time for your bold predictions. What? It's time for your bold predictions segment. I'm keeping that. Where we get weird, okay? Set the tone. We are going to get weird together and try to predict what happens in this game, but we're no longer making responsible predictions here. Let's look at what we predicted for week 5 in London. An actual duck started the action with a doink occurring on all 4 uprights. I do not believe we got a single doink, sadly. We got too many doinks in Lambeau. We used up all of our doink energy. Viking King said that Tottenham Hotspur was known for never winning any trophies, and to break the curse on their home turf, the Vikings would win NFC and offensive and defensive players of the week. None of that happened. It was a very sloppy game. JB's Burner said that the London Bridge fell down in 10-14, and therefore the Vikings would get, or the Vikings and Jets would combine for more than 1,014 yards of total offense in a Vikings victory. We did not even sniff that. Again, very sloppy, bad game. Siebert had a similar one. The first Viking raid of England was 793 CE, and Addison would honor that by going 7-4-93. Jordan Addison again did not get even close to that. So none of these even in spirit really. And then Orion Callaghan said that the ratio of Sam's passing yards to Rodgers' passing yards would be greater than or equal to Adam Gase's win-loss record as head coach. I think I said it was like 0.25 or 2.55 or something like that, but Aaron Rodgers got more passing yards than Sam Darnold in that game. So we did not get close. So not our best work. Usually I can be pretty happy if we get one in spirit, even if we don't get one, fully because it's just too bold. That's kind of where I want to live. I don't want to live where, the opposite of all these things is happening. So let's try again against Detroit. The first one comes from Jonathan, who says that Jared Goff will have the 4th straight game with 18 completions, but with at least as many incompletions than the last 3 combined. So that would mean 18 of 30 or more incompletions than that. So if he goes 20 for 32, that would count too, right? Or if it's, 20 for 34, that's even better. So you need Jared Goff to have a really messed up game for this one to hit. And he has not had a game like that. So I am calling this sufficiently bold. But I will say, I think some of those stats will count interceptions as not like as part of it because, it was a passing attempt. But no, you said incompletions. We need incomplete passes. I'll get out in front of that as well. This duck that won't get out of my mentions, a real duck, says that every single fourth down that is not fair caught will result in a score. So the duck also listed ways, a touchdown, fourth downs, that could be a field goal. That could be, a punt return touchdown, right? So there will be like no punts that are both returned and tackled. It could also be a pick six, a safety, etc. A lot of you came up with some version of like a way to make fun of Dan Campbell for going out for it on fourth down a lot. Like one of you said that like he'll never go for it on fourth down, which I don't think is very bold. Like situation just may never call for that. Or that he'll, that a lot of you have these like weird fantasy. It's going to be fourth down, and TJ Hockenson will throw one that doinks off someone's helmet, and it's like you have these like weird fantasy plays that I usually don't use. But I will say, for the sake of the duck, you didn't get every single way that a fourth down can result in a score that is not a fair caught catch. Don't worry about it. I got you. It will result in a score. I feel you. But basically that there will be no returned punts in this game, not one returned punt, and all of the fourth downs have to be scored. So no turnovers on downs, no, last grasp interceptions at the end of the game or anything like that. Luke Brown's Vols Burner, the most evil person in my mentions, says each level of the defense will get a takeaway. So that's D-line, LBs, and DBs. So you'll get one takeaway for each level of defense, and each level of the offense will score. So that's the receivers, which he counted as the same thing, wide receiver and tight end. Okay, fair enough. Running back, QB, and O-line. And I decided to count both teams here because that's like 4 scores and 3 take. Yeah, you know what? That's bold. Actually, no, I'm not. You didn't specify, but I assume you're talking about the Vikings. I'm going to give it to you. Like, I would have been more gracious, but you are a Volunteers fan. So eat it. Yep. So that's going to have to be 4 scores, and one of them is going to have to be an O-line score, and 3 takeaways, 1 for each level of the defense, at least. Shadow says that the Lions will have 2 touchdowns called back because of ineligible man downfield penalties. This one made me laugh. So another one a lot of you did was some version of like eligible offense, 6 offensive line shenanigans of like Dan Skipper will have more receptions than Justin Jefferson or something like that. A lot of you, like probably more than half of the pool of bold predictions, were some version of trying to make a joke about that, which I appreciate where all your heads are at, but you are all a hive mind and you had the exact same thought. So I went with the one about every level having a touchdown from the Vols guy, and with this one, that the Lions will have 2 touchdowns called back because of ineligible man downfield penalties, in a stroke of beautiful irony. Cam X Storm says that Kirby Joseph will be credited in coverage for all Vikings passing touchdowns. A stipulation I wanted to put on these because you could kind of have this weird, like sleazy way of there being 1 passing touchdown and it happens on Kirby Joseph and then you win. But you said passing touchdowns plural. So it's got to be plural. I'm going to have to say there's at least 2 passing touchdowns for this one to be live, and that they both have to come in Kirby Joseph's coverage in terms of credited in coverage. Here's the deal. I don't trust anybody that tries to chart this. I don't trust PFF to do this. They have been catastrophically wrong in the past, basically like half the time I've tried to use it. So I will take a look and I will be the judge of whether or not it is in Kirby Joseph's coverage. If it's, truly his fault, I'll try to diagnose it best I can. And I promise you, I will be fair about this. Okay. I know that I'm the one with a stake here, but I won't be biased about this. You just got to place your trust in me. Speaking of, Q and Storms, Will Sparks says that since the pyramids have opened, the Lions will kick 3 field goals. The Vikings will score 3 touchdowns on third downs, and Jared Goff will have 3 turnovers. I'm very appreciative that you had 4 sides here for a true pyramid, 4 sides. of threes, 4 sides of triangles, rather than making it like a 3x3, which would not be a true pyramid the way that the real one is, the pyramids of Giza that have opened. Storm's coming. Okay, so if you don't know what I'm joking about, there was a thing about that it's from like a QAnon account that I'm not sure if it's joking or not. That was like the pyramids have opened and the apocalypse is coming. I love it. If it's sincere or not, both of them very enjoyable for me to consume that content. Love to see it, and the pyramids have opened. So everybody, get ready, prepare yourselves and your families for the coming. Whatever. Vikings, Lions, Sunday. I'll see you on the postcast afterwards. I love you all. And as always, Skull.